It is my great pleasure to introduce Yogesh Malik. And Yogesh is the Group CTIO of Tele2. And we are going to be talking about offering digital services to meet market demand, which, as you know, is such a straightforward thing to do. So it was a joke. Let's start by asking Yogesh to tell us a little bit about Tele2 Group and also about his rather large responsibilities. Welcome, Yogesh.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Annie. My name is Yogesh Malik, and Tele2, let me introduce Tele2. We operate as Tele2 in Nordics and Baltics, headquartered out of Stockholm, Kista. We are mobile, fixed, TV, IoT, multiplay operator. I'm sure there are many others in the same. Our purpose is to enable a society with unlimited possibilities of connectivity. And our ambition is to become the leading telco in the Nordics and Baltics. Recently, last week, we have been recognized as Tele2. We have been recognized to be the most sustainable company in Sweden and number 37 in the world by Time and Statistica. So that is a great honor.
Big achievement.
Yeah, it's a great honor, but it comes with a great responsibility because this journey of sustainability continues and we have to keep our efforts in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a little taste of Tele2 and where it operates and its businesses, and clearly it has serious ambitions, which is probably mostly a good thing. So we're here today to talk about digital services, and I know from conversations with Yogesh that one of the things he feels really strongly about is that you can't approach digital services by just putting an overlay or a wrapper around systems. He feels this is not going to enable you to deliver digital services properly in a seamless fashion. So can you tell us what's the thinking behind this, Yogesh, that you don't want just an overlay approach?
Yeah, and the word overlay or wrapper says it a little bit as well, because what is inside, does that matter? And for us in Tele2, it does matter. Because digital services, today in the ecosystem, we can compare. We can compare whether we are booking hotels, whether we are booking airlines, whether we are buying goods, whether we are ordering things, and that all is digital service, which is based on connectivity, of course. So when telcos are providing digital services to enterprises, large enterprises, to micro customers, to mass market, we have to think end to end. So by having a wrapper or overlay, we do not, or we push the deep plumbing down the road, and we push the can down the road saying deep plumbing will come later. And actually deep plumbing is needed to retire legacy. So in Tele2, we have decided that we are going to switch off 2G and 3G at the end of next year, 2025, which means we will be a 4G, 5G advanced network. And that too, together with network sharing, deep network sharing, which means that we can go much deeper in connectivity. At the same time, with deep plumbing, we can provide good digital services end to end.
Okay, so we're going to explore that a bit more as we go along. But you're kind of talking there mostly from an operational point of view. And this, the two key things there are you don't like the overlay, you want deep connectivity. How does that work from, why is it important from the customer's perspective?
Yeah,
rather than just operationally?
Absolutely, and I think customer comes first. That is very clear to us, to myself. Hence, when we think about architecture, we should not only think about data-driven architecture, we should think about customer journeys. And why customers' perspective matters, because at the end of the day, customers' use of those services is going to be the clear testimony for us if we are performing good. So whether it is the phase of joining, whether it is the phase of upgrading, replacing, repairing, or whether it is the phase of checking out, all these phases are very important in the customer journey. All these phases really need all the data which are in different layers of the telco stack. And the way we focus on is multi-factor authentication when it comes to security, because it is very important that our services are secure. Then we go to the next level. Checkout needs to be very seamless, very transparent. Contracts need to be able to be digitally signed, and we should be able to expose all the upgrades of the products via the product catalog at the same time. So I think this is a complete connected, you can think about an ecosystem in the telco stack which needs to be surfaced up to serve the customer journey. And then analytics on that customer journey. Where does the journey really fail? And if the journey is failing, how can we introduce conversational AI to help the journey come back on track? And I think those are the things we are continuously exploring right now.
Okay, so you said to me when we were talking earlier that it's IT, network bearer, the end line, the last mile, and every component comes into play to make this vision you have for the customer possible. And maybe another way of describing that is to say, in a way, that you want to offer the same sort of interface as cloud providers offer. So the self-provision, the control of their services, the pay-as-you-go, all that stuff. Now, the thing is, though, the really big difference, Yogesh, between you and other telcos and the cloud providers is that you're regulated. The telecoms industry is regulated in a very different way. Well, some could say that cloud companies aren't much regulated at all. But anyway, you are. And could we talk a little bit about that regulation and how that comes into how you think about and design your digital services and their delivery?
Absolutely. First of all, cloud is also physical. Cloud is not in the cloud. So it's also physical, number one. What is important for us in Tele2, we have a hybrid strategy. We have our private cloud, and we, of course, have partnerships with the public cloud providers as well. The regulations in Sweden and in Baltics, they are very, very focused on customers, very focused on data processing, data sovereignty. And I think it is the right thing to do. Earlier there was GDPR, but this is the next level where we talk about control planes, where we talk about how do we make sure that the services to the customer, no matter what's happening in the geopolitics, can keep going on. How do we make our services reliable and resilient through the whole journey? And hence the last miles for us comes into play quite a bit. And we want to make sure that we comply with those regulations and abide to those regulations because they are very critical for our customers as well.
Okay, and you mentioned control planes, and I understand that, for example, the Swedish authorities want to get involved in control planes because in the event of a big emergency, they want to be able to close Sweden's communications infrastructure. They want to isolate it. Is that correct?
Well, I think it is, we have to look at it from a point of view that every nation wants to keep the communication services ongoing. There should not be any disruptions. And how to make sure that all that continuously goes on, given we are a critical infrastructure, I think those are the measures which every country is taking in different ways. How does AI sovereignty come into play is also the new topic, and these topics are becoming very hot. Yes.
And I mean, I also, from talking to other people, other CTOs, understand that we've thought a lot about data, where it's stored, and that definition of sovereignty. But there's an increasing focus because of geopolitical tensions and other things on where the data is when it's being processed and where it goes if it has to be rerouted because of a failure of a link. And after all, in every minute of every day, a backhoe somewhere in the world goes through a telecoms cable.
See, talking about digital services would naturally mean that we are talking about data. Digital without data or AI without data would be incomplete. And data sovereignty is critical as urbanization is happening, nationalization is also happening in many different ways. And data sovereignty and data processing is critical in that. And for us, what is important as engineers and experts is to design architectures which can help be both transparent, but at the same time, be actually very resilient depending upon which situation we are in.
So when you're planning your architecture and deploying the architecture, you are having to think about possible regulatory changes.
Yes.
All the time, you have to have that.
Over time, absolutely. And hence we talk about modular architecture, hence we talk about composable architecture, that we can remove elements, we can introduce elements. We talk about API decouplings. We are talking about multi-factor authentication because we have to understand how these fields will evolve. And the architecture is not static, it also needs to evolve over time.
So obviously we're expecting AI, and in particular generative AI, to play a big role in the development and delivery of digital services. And one of obviously the thing that you need for AI of all kinds is data. How do you get data to a new level of accuracy to make it really useful for the models you want to run?
Data is extremely important, as I mentioned before as well. It is the center point. The better the data, not only in structure, I would leave the structure alone because the new technologies, they can figure out to work with raw data very well. But data should be there. With good data, we can expect good results and good output. If the data is not good or is incomplete, then of course the results are going to be that way. And a lot of time, given our legacy, and I'm a part of that too, because I've been in the industry for more than 3 decades. And now, if you think about it, a lot of data is in the heads of the experts as well. The more data we can let the system not hold the data hostage, but have a clean flow, we can improve the outcome in anomaly detection in a much, much faster pace, in creating AI ops which can resolve and lead into self-healing networks. So I think that is the mission we have, that is the ambition we have, that we need to design networks which can heal themselves. We do not need to kind of go and restart. It should be able to restart itself with the redundancy in play.
Okay. I'm just wondering as well how important AI is going to be given the complexity of telcos and telco networks. You're running several generations of network at once. Even though you're closing down 2 and 3G, you've still got 4G, 5G, and 5G advanced, or whatever you want to call it, SA as well. And then you've also got a fixed network and you've got TV. So this is a very complex. How important is AI, and how do you think it's going to play into helping you with those digital services?
I think it's going to be a great tool for us. So there are 2 parts to that question, at least in my humble opinion. One is, how does AI and Gen AI help us? And I think that the modern technologies can really help us come over the dependency on how much a human brain can process. Actually, we can do much more architecture defining, while the base operations can be much more automated. That's what our belief is. And then the second thing is, how do we retire responsibly technologies which have been there in the past and which are in the long tail right now? Until we do that, we will need to carry on that burdensome modernization which seems never ending. that, okay, when is the transformation going to finish? But actually the transformation will continue, and we just need to take some bold moves when it comes to 2G, when it comes to 3G, and we have to move to the next level. And when it comes to not only the better technologies of mobile, we should think about fixed also. We should think about is DOCSIS and what next. We should think the same way when we talk about CDNs. We should think about the same way. Which application, which coding are we doing for our applications, which are the exposure applications? So I think this is a whole, I would say it's a pretty big topic. And one shouldn't be looking that, okay, legacy transformation done, and now it's a clean pasture, because if we don't continuously modernize, we will get stuck in the legacy debt one more time.
Well, I can definitely say you've been getting rid of legacy as an industry for at least 25 years.
Yes.
So you must be on the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren of the stuff that was legacy, and now that's legacy too. And it also seems to me that the gap between something being new and becoming legacy is getting shorter. So I think it's a bit like, I don't know, trying to hold back the tide or something, isn't it, legacy? It's maybe like the poor, it'll always be with us, I don't know. So talk to me a little bit, Yogesh, as well about OSS systems and their relevance to digital services, because I've had a few people tell me that OSS is been a particularly difficult part to modernize so that you can deliver digital services from end to end. And you know, this digitalization of the full stack, OSS has been a really obstinate part.
Yes, yeah, but we can't let it go. We should address that. It's like having teenagers. So we should not. OSS is a very critical component. Without BSS and OSS working, we cannot think about self-provisioning in the best possible manner. We cannot think about self-care going all the way connecting to self-provisioning. So OSS is a big component. But before OSS comes observability. Can we observe everything which is going on in the network, whether it is fixed, mobile, TV? Can we observe that? And today, a lot of strategies of observability are on collecting of the logs, and then using that with various techniques to see if there were any aberrations in the logs. If you twist that around and say that actually we do not even need to collect the logs, we are able to rectify the aberrations and the anomalies on spot and trigger that, and just collect logs which are necessary to be collected. So we would be able to improvise the full thing. So OSS strategy, observability strategy for me is critical. For us in Tele2 is critical. And yes, it is difficult. It is not easy because there is a lot which is self-developed and there is a lot which is bought. And until we understand what is our strategy of buy versus build, and we improvise the buy strategy also, we will not be able to address that. So I am a firm believer that OSS is very important to tackle for a seamless digital experience.
So in terms of having this full new stack that enables you to deliver digital services in a way that you want to deliver them, yes, and interface with the customer, I mean, how far along that journey would you say you are? I mean, are you, I don't know, the first mile or out of 10 or the 10th mile, or does it depend which bit you're looking at?
I think it would depend, and it would depend how you look at the stack. So the way we look at stack is we look end to end. So whether it is transmission, whether it is fixed, whether it's mobile, whether it's BSS, whether it's OSS, whether it's exposure layers to web, to retail, to app, or to the call center, and how they are decoupled. If you look at the full stack, and then you look at the maturity you have achieved in data and AI at the grassroots level, then you'll get the answer. And for us, the answer is our legacy is going down, and our digital capabilities are going up, and we are at that point now. And I think it feels good because we have been able to responsibly retire certain key functions, and we have been able to replicate them with much more simplification and modernization in the new sort of stack.
How big a part of this story is, are APIs and this disaggregation and this modularity?
APIs are critical. They are going to be the new asset for enterprise services, which is going to cross telco boundaries into and give national services. I think it is going to be very critical. And API depends. Here wrapper comes into the play. If we are, or overlay, if we are going to expose the API, and if the API does not do the deep plumbing job, then whether it is number verify, whether it is SIM swap, whether it's fraud detection, you would not go much farther. You would not be real time, or one would not be able to provide those services. And for us to be reducing the latency, having full consistency, it's important that we go deep plumbing on that.
Okay. I think it's time to see if the audience has any questions.
Any questions?
Gentleman here? Oh, sorry. I'll make sure she doesn't miss you. Thank you.
Hi, Yogesh. I had a sort of bit of a hypothetical question for you.
Sure.
Which would you rather, be a CTIO for an existing provider with lots of customer data but lots of legacy, or a CTIO for a new greenfield operator but with no customer data? Which is most likely to succeed?
Well, you're meaner than you look.
Yeah, I think both are pleasurable jobs. I would select any one of them. Both have their challenges. You can see the greenfield operators in North America. It's not easy. We have seen that in far east as well. It was not easy. Open interfaces were there, but yet customers were not coming. So I think both roles have their positives and negatives. What I would say is one should have a clear vision of the architecture and be realistic with the stakeholder expectations.
Okay, so gentleman here, please step in the second row, I think.
Thank you very much. You spoke about switch off of 2G and
Sorry, we
3G,
can't hear
but
very well.
my question is about 2G. I guess you have IoT, you have IoT services, so have you any kind of program to avoid impact on those devices in 2G? Mainly today we have a lot of IoT over 2G. The second question is about the hybrid clouds you spoke about. Can you share with us what is your driver to have on-prem or out from your prem? What is your driver in terms of decision? Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, great questions. An earlier one was also very, very good, insightful question. The driver for selection of which architecture to take is one, the 5G compliance. We have regulations in our geographies. Second one is resiliency. Third one definitely is total cost of ownership. And then it depends upon the nature of the workload. Because if the workload is transferring a lot and is streaming, is signaling a lot, then compute and storage capacities outside may become more onerous than having it designed with us. So I think there are multiple considerations, and it is also into continuous way. But what we say is when we choose a path, we shouldn't be keep shifting the path. So we should stick on to that path. So a much more rigorous planning is very important before we enter the dimension of public cloud. Now, coming to the first point on sort of the devices, we continuously educate our customers that how lift of the end user devices over time is also very important to avail VoLTE over the voice component of IoT. And we know that different territories are going, and we have IoT businesses in different geographies as well. So how do we work with that, at the same time work with the customers to show them the benefit and get enough time to plan together? That is the way we are doing. So we are not doing abruptly, we are doing way in advance this education together with the customers. Yes, well, it is not, we have to consider both the ecosystem, but we have to think about the future at the same time.
Anybody else have a question for Yogesh? Excuse me, there's a lady. You need 360-degree vision, Deb. Please.
Yeah, Yogesh, thank you very much for just adding to our information a lot. I agree with you that data is mandatory for any kind of digital services that you have. So this, your company, Tele2, is B2B or B2C service provider in a way?
Both.
Both. So it's a telecom operator kind of?
Yes.
Because you talk more about the digital services, so I was just wondering maybe you are just targeting the end user as corporates or B2B kind of a scenario.
So we have brands on consumer side like Comvic, which also serve prepaid and postpaid. So there also we provide digital services. And we have big enterprises like law enforcement agencies, public authorities, communes, which we also provide connectivity services. So we see that digital services, troubleshooting, self-care, restore backup, compute, I think they are all needed, and yes, so we provide both.
Okay, we are out of time, but I always will take one more question if there's anyone would like. Oh, there we are. I had a feeling there was one brewing.
When you talk about digital services, the expectation from the CEO is very much about monetization. It's not looking at applications anymore, because those days are gone. It's all about platform creation and taking new things to the market, okay, which is beyond connectivity. How do you see that in Tele2? Is it more about rolling out the capability, or are you building new offerings that can be monetized?
I think they both need to go hand in hand because offerings cannot come without capabilities, and capabilities need to have various fundamentals into play. So I would say that lately it is becoming more evident for us that when it comes to enterprises, they want to design also. So when we talk about, and we will talk about 5G Advanced later, they want to actually become more independent. And how do we enable them to become more independent? I think digital is one of the way by which when we deploy private networks, they get completely independent, and with the self-service, they can do provisioning themselves. And I think that's great.
Thank you very much. Oh, go on, Robert, top. Robert's at the front. Sorry, Deb, we just like to keep you spinning.
Sorry, just super quick. You probably there's something you didn't talk about, which I wanted to go to you about, is experimentation.
Yes.
For enterprises, they kind of try before you buy.
Yes.
That at the moment, almost all the kind of serious enterprise services are a process, a design process, an RQ. It could be months before you can get a commercial proposal. But wouldn't it be fun if you had, to your point about cloud-like interface?
Yes.
This that's the service you want, great, we can spin it up in a matter of minutes. You can spin it up. If you like it, buy the service. If you don't, you tear it down and we move on. Is that part of how you see the future movie progressing?
Yeah, I think we had a great discussion on that. We have to, there are two parts to that question from my point of view. One is how we operate internally also. How do we buy internally? We cannot go through this long waterfall process. We need to be able to do a MVP and then buy on top whatever we are procuring. At the same time, when we supply services, that is a very, very important way that we actually do that by saying that you try this thing, and we have done that with air forestry, where they use the drone to thin the forest. And we have done that with other clients where we were delivering food with trucks which are autonomous, or the delivery carts. And I think it was, okay, let's do a trial. Let's see if it works in the center and how accurate it is. And if it works and there is a demand, and when it gets, yes, this would be a trial case which can mature. So I think we should be ready for those trial cases. And without that, till you touch and see and feel, it's hard to buy. Yeah. Good point.
Okay. Yogesh, thanks lots, as always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.